It's simple, really. Great stories with a good cup of tea. It's the Tea with Mike show. Alright guys, welcome to another story time. I am Tea with Mike. Joining me for this particular story is Leah. Welcome to Tea with Mike.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Mike. How are you today?
Not too bad. How's your day so far?
It is going wonderful. It's just a good old busy Wednesday, but I'm making it and I'm pressing on. How about your day, Mike?
Yeah, just kind of kick starting, ready to dive into some conversation and to share some stories back and forth. So let's jump right in. And so we'll start with our tea fact. Approximately 87% of millennials are apparently tea drinkers, and that makes them the highest percentage of any age group to consume tea. And that comes from swansonvitamins.com. So again, welcome. And first off, what did you make of the crazy cool freshest tea fact?
Oh my goodness. I think that's so interesting because, Mike, honestly, I would have guessed that millennials are more coffee drinkers, not exactly interested in tea. And so that's really surprising, personally, to me that they really enjoy tea. They're huge tea fans in that age group.
Yeah, and so yeah, well said. And so one of my favorite things of when I added in the tea facts into the show, which came like partway through, was all the crazy stuff you learn, like where tea originated from, which countries had it first, which countries consume the most tea, like how expensive is tea, how much does tea weigh, how many different types of tea are there. It's a whole history in itself, and that's quite cool.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I agree.
Awesome. So we'll start by asking and learning a little bit about you. So, what do you do? Like, yeah, fire away.
Fire away. I'll tell you about myself. I think that's everyone's favorite question. Tell me about yourself. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Leah Hadder, and I am an entrepreneur, a business owner, a speaker, and a podcast host. I host a podcast entitled Sash Says. I am a proud graduate of Arkansas State University with degrees in business management and a master's degree in public administration. And in 2018, I founded Sash Pageant Consulting, which is a consulting business for pageant contestants. And so, what I do is I offer services to help prepare pageant contestants for their specified competitions. And so, some of those services include paperwork development, interview preparation, modeling and onstage coaching, wardrobe consultation, social media development, and just everything that you can think of in order to prepare contestants for pageantry. And so, it's been really exciting to combine my love of pageants and pageantry with my knowledge in business and using my formal business education in order to help people by running a business which helps them reach their goals.
Awesome. And so let's start by learning a little bit more about your podcast,
Sure.
Sash. What role does that play in the big picture? How did it start? Why did you decide to start it? What do you talk about on your podcast?
Okay, sure, absolutely. So just a few months ago, I released Sash Says podcast, and that truly, Mike, is a miracle within itself because I am not very tech savvy. Like I can barely work my own cell phone or an iPhone. I am not savvy when it comes to like operating technology, as you saw before the interview even happened, and. To me, like, I'm just so, excited and proud that I was able to create this podcast. The idea for the podcast came from me hosting Instagram live interviews on my Sash Pageant Consulting Instagram page. And you can actually look at some of the pictures and see the videos at the social media tag at Leah Hadder is where you can see it. And so I started hosting these interviews or these chats similar to what you're doing here on Tea with Mike with pageant queens from all over the United States. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I take it further and develop some sort of podcast? Because I'm a huge podcast fan. I listen to numerous amounts of podcasts each and every day. And I thought, you know what? I could possibly do something like this. Like, I have no idea how. I don't know how I'm going to put it together, and I don't have the right equipment, and I'm probably going to need to ask a lot of help. But what, I could possibly do something like that. And so I started recording some episodes of just me simply talking on my phone, giving pageant advice, talking about my pageant story, my competition success, etc. And had those sound recordings on my phone. And I thought, somehow I'm supposed to get these recordings to some type of podcast platform. And so I called a buddy of mine and I texted him first and then called him later. And I said, Dan, I'm thinking about doing this podcast. Would you mind helping me? But then also, would you mind producing the sound clips? Because he has years of experience in broadcasting, working in radio, emceeing, etc. And he has like this amazing voice. He can do all this cool stuff with music. And I said, if I record the episodes, would you mind doing the sound clips? Oh, and by the way, like, how do you build a podcast? Like, how do
That's
you do it? Because I'm starting from scratch and I have no idea what I'm doing. So he gave me a lot of advice and a lot of coaching, and actually introduced me to, this is not an ad. I'm just sharing my story. It's not an ad. This is not a paid advertisement. There's a website called Anchor, and it's a great podcast platform in order to build your podcast on. And it's really good for newbies too. And so I was able to create that podcast with a lot of coaching, a lot of hard work, and a lot of dedication, and a lot of research. And it's still kind of a work in progress, but it's been so fun. So that's where the idea came from, and that's how it started. Eventually, I began researching, what makes a great podcast, how to put a good podcast episode together, how to incorporate like sponsor ads within the episodes, etc. And so I started just building like one day at a time. And then Mike, it just slowly started coming together. The theme of Sash Says is conversations between beauty queens, entrepreneurs, and people striving to make a difference in their communities. And so truly, some people think of it as a pageant podcast, which is only for pageant queens, but we talk about everything. And so, yes, you will see a lot of title holders as guests, but then I've also had guests on there who may not have been a pageant queen per se, but they've been involved in the pageant industry somehow, some way. Ironically, even though this started as a really fun idea and I didn't really know how to put it all together in the beginning, and I was just working and working and working and trying to build it, God just kept blessing me with opportunities in order to invite guests on. Mike, I had to teach myself how to Zoom people and how to record an episode from the Zoom. Okay, like I'm a true newbie, and I tell that to people and I emphasize that to encourage people like to pursue their dreams no matter what. And it's okay if you don't know. It's okay if you feel unprepared. Like just keep striving, keep pushing forward. And eventually, I decided to start networking and kind of branching out in order to kind of build diversity amongst my interview guests. And lo and behold, I simply just sent an email to the host. He was a co-host of the Miss Teen USA pageant, which is a huge pageant within the U.S. And I just sent him an email and I simply invited him to come on the show, and he replied back and said yes. I almost fell out of my chair. Because he is such a huge icon within the United States. And so it was really humbling for me to be able to receive that yes. And so for those of you out there who, you're just too scared to take a risk, or, your hand is shaking while you're trying to, press the key to send the email, just go ahead and do it. Take that risk, jump in. The worst they can do is tell you no. Well, then my Instagram page started to build, my business started to grow even more. And then eventually I was able to connect with Miss Universe Norway. She is the Miss Norway title holder who competed for the Miss Universe system, which is another fantastic pageant system. And I know that Canada, there's a Miss Canada title holder as well. So that was an amazing experience. And so, Mike, I mean, honestly, it's just, I just work at it daily, and I just keep a positive attitude. And if I feel like I need to sharpen my skills, I have no problem, calling in advice or asking a buddy to help review it, etc. And so that's my whole life story related to that podcast. But if you would like to check it out, it is available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify and several other media platforms.
Also, we'll definitely talk like outside of this, because I need some help with growing my podcast. I got the website up and functioning, so obviously over time I'll develop more traffic to the website. But and then the Facebook page is going pretty good, but like two areas that lack any fire and growth, the podcast and my Instagram page. So we can talk and see if you got some pointers or
Absolutely.
advice on in line with kind of what I'm doing on that sort of thing. So so then more broadly, kind of how did you get started in public speaking, entrepreneurship, and podcasting? So where did you develop those interests from?
Sure, absolutely. So connecting it all to pageantry and how it all connects together. I began competing in pageants when I was in the 6th grade, and my I did not win a pageant until almost my sophomore year in college. So it took years and years of dedication and hard work, and just even though I felt like I was failing at what I wanted to do, even though I hadn't seen my overall goal come to fruition. I just kept working at it and kept trying. And eventually, I won a title. What a lot of people don't realize is that when a young lady participates in something like pageantry, when she's competing in pageants, she is able to develop so many skills, especially with the interview portion, practicing interview questions, meeting a panel, and practicing how to properly express her thoughts. When you are on stage answering an onstage question, you are actually practicing impromptu speaking because a lot of contestants don't know the question. They literally walk up to a bowl and pull out a question, and that question could be related to religion, to politics, to their platform, their personal life, whatever. And so they have to learn how to think on their feet, which is another skill that I was able to sharpen as well. And so honestly, I think a lot of my public speaking skills that I have been able to sharpen over the years, I do credit to participating in pageantry. Another practice that really helps a lot of contestants and helped me personally was that I had pageant directors who would schedule events for me to come to speak at and then also appear at as well. But Mike, there were some events where I would go to and visit, and I would simply just walk in the room with a crown and sash on, and then my director would say, "Okay, Leah, walk up to that platform in front of everybody and tell them about this pageant system for 5 minutes." I had just walked in the door, like I didn't what are you talking? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you asking me to do this? And so that's another way that I was able to enhance all of these speaking skills. And then, of course, attending Arkansas State and pursuing a degree in business, you have to be able to talk through different types of presentations. You have to learn how to communicate with people of different backgrounds. You also have to be able to not only like manage your speaking appearances as well, but you have to learn how to stay organized, but then also learn how to work with people who may communicate differently than you do. And so I do credit my speaking ability not only to pageants, but also in taking those classes as well. And of course, like a lot of people out there, I had to take oral communications, or some people may call it like freshman speech or whatever. And so that also helped me learning how to speak and how to do, just a lot of different types of methods in order to communicate information. Now, public relations related to the media of actually how to build a social media page and communicate to people through that. A lot of that, Mike, was honestly just getting on Google and reading through articles of how to build a social media page for your business, how to build a Facebook, how to build an Instagram, how to properly post different types of pictures that relay information to your audience, how to identify your target audience, how to figure out how to connect with them through social media. I was also able to just call up a few of my buddies or send out different types of messages of, hey, I'm trying to enhance my business. I'm trying to build, the marketing side of it. How do you do this? How do you do that? And so I do credit being able to communicate properly through social media to just honestly just a lot of self research, but then also asking for advice as well. I'm a huge advocate for calling a friend or hiring some type of consultant, putting yourself in the presence of someone who you feel like is successful within that particular field.
And why do you think that is? Because you feel sometimes it's easier to get help within a certain realm to make you make faster progress instead of spending like 10 years developing how to do one thing, but you missed out on all of this other things.
Yes. And like I said, I am a huge advocate for hiring a coach, hiring a consultant, hiring a mentor because they can give you feedback. You may not even know that you are failing at a particular marketing technique or a communication technique. And so I love feedback. I respect feedback, even if it's a terrible review. Even if someone sent me a message and said, I didn't get anything out of that video you just posted, that's fine because it lets me know what I can work on. Another positive aspect with hiring some type of mentor or a coach too is they can show you different techniques to make whatever you're doing possibly easier. So a lot of things I realized that I was doing like manually, and there were actually different types of like computer programs out there that could help you schedule posts on social media, or can help you record at a better sound quality, or you can reach like a specific target audience through purchasing ads and sending that out on their social
Yeah.
media, which saved me so much time in the long run. And so, yes, definitely. Like, if you need to meet with a mentor, meet with a coach to, not only give you good advice, but then to help make your life easier or help you become like more efficient or more skilled in your technique, saving time as well, definitely do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges in life, and that's how I think some of the most successful people come come to be in there. And that's like because there's only 24 hours in the day. Doesn't
Absolutely. Yes.
matter if you're a celebrity or you work at a convenience store. Everybody has the
Yes.
same like 24 hours. So I think the way to stand out is how to be the most effective and efficient with the time that you have to get the most done, right?
Yes.
So do you have a few three tips on the best ways to stay productive, or some time management tips?
So, sure, absolutely. Number one is to stay focused on your overall goal. Because if you are focused on that goal, you're going to do whatever it takes in order to achieve it. And you're also going to be more willing to develop different types of processes to help you reach that goal. I know that a lot of people are preaching writing down a specific goal or maybe writing down several goals. That's fine. But, like, Mike, I can write down stuff all day, but, like, if I'm not focused on it or if I don't have some type of process in order to get me from point A to point B, I'm not going to achieve that goal. And so, number one, it's to just stay focused on your goal no matter what. And I think the second point would be develop a process for how to get from point A to point B. And then a third piece of advice that I would like to give is in order to stay productive, you need to keep it moving. And so I'm a huge fan of multitasking, and I know some people are against it, some people are for it, etc. But you can utilize your time during your day at the absolute maximum capacity. And so, like for instance, I hear people say, I'm just not able to find time to read business books in order to give me the knowledge that I need to run my business. I'm just not able to sit down and watch videos because I'm trying to do this or I'm trying to do that. You can do something as simple as while you have your laundry going in the washer, you can be sitting down reading a book about business finances while your laundry's going.
Yeah.
I've got myself walking around the house, like I'll have the laundry going and I'm washing the dishes, but I'm listening to some type of entrepreneurship podcast. And so, even at the office too, I would have a video playing of some type of speaker giving some type of advice or like motivational speech while I'm working on this and while something else is happening. So, like, don't be afraid to multitask and kind of like I said, just keep it moving and keep it flowing. Don't just sit stagnant. If you are just sitting stagnant, if you need a break, then like I said, read. You can also listen to a podcast while you're doing something, or like if you find yourself kind of idle for a minute, turn on the TV and turn on some sort of educational show that will teach you something or kind of like broaden your horizons a little bit. So the first thing would be stay focused on your goal. The second would be develop processes in order to reach the goal, and the third thing would be, of course, keep it moving and multitask.
Awesome. And then, so I guess I'm gonna ask is how important is that kind of like setting like time limits? Do you set time limits? What scheduling tools, if any, do you use to help you? For example, a calendar. So you gave us some like broader overview. Now, what do you
Yeah.
most specifically do?
Okay. Sure.
Stay
Yeah.
on point.
Yes, absolutely. Like if you need to set alarms, you need to do so in order to make the most out of your day. And I mean, even related to alarms, like don't just sleep until noon and then expect to be so productive. Like if you need to get up kind of earlier in the morning to get yourself together and able to accomplish more, then do so. So yes, I set alarms. What I also do is I switch like from one task to the other, and so um, what I can do though is I can work on a specific task for a certain amount of time, and I absolutely do try to finish it. But if I don't beat myself up over it. So I allow myself a certain time frame. So let's say it's an hour, and so I'll work on whatever it is for an hour. And if I don't finish it, that's okay. I'll just come back to it later, and I'll pick up the next thing that's important. Another practice that I do in order to maximize my effectiveness is if I have a long list of things to do related to setting alarms, related to making the most out of your time, setting limits, etc., I will work on whatever is due first and then work throughout my list. And so if I have this huge project that's due tomorrow, but then I have 68 things to do that aren't due until whatever the next Friday, like go ahead and work on whatever is due first. And then so you can kind of like set up your tasks related to when they're due. So that's another practice that's really helped me a lot. And then, of course, just making sure that I'm staying organized. Keep a calendar, write things down. Um, of course, set your alarms when you need to. Allow a certain amount of time to work on tasks, but then also allow yourself to rest. And there are some studies out there that show that if you work very, very hard for a certain amount of time, take a break, eat your lunch, breathe, allow
Yeah,
yourself to think. A lot of successful people will take like a short nap during the day, or they may go walking for like 20 minutes. One of my most productive bosses, she would actually walk around the building just a few times, and she would listen to like motivational music. And then as soon as she was done with her break, she went back and started working harder. There's some sort of scientific process out there that actually proves if you do take just a short break versus someone who just works hard all the way throughout the day, the ones who actually take just very short breaks where they absolutely just unplug and relax, the ones who actually take a moment to relax are actually more productive versus the ones who just work themselves to death the entire day without any type of break whatsoever. And so that's another tip that I've used.
I can definitely relate to that specific tip because I find I like I have to force myself because for me it's a little bit about routine. I'm quite good at like
Yeah.
working early on, like 7 to 12, but then my productivity like drops dramatically between like 12 and 3. Yeah, definitely 1 to 3. I find myself getting tired, but then I find I have a lot of energy again, like after dinner at like 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Yes. Oh yeah, and there are certain you're gonna have certain like lags during the day. I do not think my best in the morning, and so
Okay.
I there's actually a joke in my family. They say, most people like they think from 8 to 5, like they have their brains turned on from 8 to 5, but like Leah works from like 5 to 8. Like that's just how my brain works. I do better. Like I feel like I'm more productive like when I'm awake and I'm ready to go. And I've tried going to bed earlier. I've tried changing my diet, but I just
Yeah.
cannot think. I'm not 100% at my absolute best in the mornings, but that's okay because I have developed this lifestyle where I can get things done in the morning, but then I've set a lifestyle up for myself where I can set myself up for success, where I don't have the most daunting tasks within the morning. I can actually work on them like after lunch and then in the evenings when I'm the most productive and like the
Nice.
most. But you do whatever is best for you. If you are a morning person where you get up at 3 and 4 in the morning, you're ready to hit the ground running. That's fantastic. So you just gotta pursue a lifestyle, pursue some type of career field that allows you like to be your best self.
And I think that obviously there are scientific studies and there's what people that classify themselves as experts for whatever reason, but I
Yeah,
really think at the end of the day, it comes down to like knowing like yourself as a person because no two
yeah.
people are the same. Like that sounded like a good tactic where you start with some easier tests in the day and kind of like ease your way like into it. So I think it just really all kind of like depends. So how many hours a day would you say that you work? Because that's always another interesting topic.
Absolutely. I typically work the traditional 40 hours a week.
And so you make sure you take time off for self care and relaxation.
Yes, sir, I do. And so I always make sure that I do take a lunch break. Now, I'm not talking about a 2 hour, hiatus, carving out, all this time from my day job. But yes, I do believe in taking breaks, and especially on the weekends, I do try to unwind. I'm constantly on some type of technological device, and so I'm always like checking my emails on my phone, or I'm working with clients through using some type of Skype or Zoom program, or I'm constantly making sure that I'm keeping up with stuff on my social media. So it always seems like I'm either holding my phone, I'm typing on the laptop, or I'm watching something on television that's kind of related to what I'm doing. And so I do on the weekends like try to take a break from technology, period. And so I love to read. And so I always make sure that I'm reading. I love to go work out at the gym too. And so I do believe in exercise. I think that's a great way to unwind. But to me, it just like helps me relax because I think, we're so constantly stimulated from having to use all of these different types of technological objects in order to get our work done because we live in a technological society. And so I do try to unwind, especially on the weekends. But yes, during the week, if I just feel like I'm getting overloaded or I need to take a break, of course, for my lunch hour, I do try to sit in a room like by myself and eat my lunch and kind of just reflect on, being thankful for what I'm doing, but then also just trying to get my thoughts
Awesome.
together. And then I get back up and then I start again.
That's
Yeah.
that's the first time I probably like heard that one physically, like sitting in a quiet space to
Yeah.
have that reflection time. And I presume during that time you don't look at technology. It's just you having some food and reflecting.
Yes, and so I do have a moment of reflecting. And Mike, I mean, it's crazy because I know you're old enough to remember it too, and I'm old enough to remember when we didn't have like not everybody just walked around with all these cell phones, with the internet and things like that. And it's so crazy like how we become addicted to it, or we become addicted to like having to be on our laptop, or and I love those little I know there are different styles, et cetera, like from country to country. But a lot of people have like the different iPads or like the little e-readers and stuff. I mean, people don't even read like, or a lot of, I won't say just everybody, but a lot of people don't even read like actual books anymore. They read
Yeah, that's very true.
some type of tablet. Like it's so crazy how we have become so addicted. And so to me, like what keeps me sane and just what helps me unwind is just to put all of it down and shut it off. I've actually come to the point too, if I feel, like I'm so drained, sometimes at night I have turned my phone off, like completely
Nice.
before, because I'll be tempted to look at it or somebody's texting or whatever. And so I've just turned it off. And it's okay. It's okay to turn it off. Just don't turn it off for too long because you don't want to make your boss mad. You don't want to think that like you don't want your boss to think that you've just quit on them or something, or like with I have clients and they're probably thinking, why did you just disappear? So anyway, yeah, feel free to take breaks. Absolutely.
Awesome, and so as we come to the end of our kind of story and conversation, got any questions for me? Some closing thoughts? What made you want to be on Tea with Mike? You're going to be the first person to answer what made you want to be on Tea with Mike.
Sure. So I have actually been a fan of your show for quite a while, and I just really enjoy watching your episodes and just learning, different tips and different pieces of advice from all of your interview guests. And I also think that this was a great opportunity for me to be able to network with someone who does have some type of media platform where you do meet a lot of people, but then you also provide opportunities like for other people to learn about all sorts of subjects, as well as myself. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to network with you, but then also to cheer you on, and let you know that what you're doing truly is making a difference. And
Thank you.
yes, and I did read in your bio that you have hosted two, and then your recent magazine article interview that came out that you took a lot of like what you learned in school, and you've been able to create something to connect with others using what you learned in class, which I think is very similar to my story as well. And so we both had to learn like how to build our media platform like from the ground up.
Yes,
Um,
for sure.
because you can't learn everything in just one from going to one class, and you can't learn everything just from a textbook. Like you've got to get out there and get your feet wet, and you got to fail a few times or you got to struggle in order to build it. And so that's the overall reason of why I wanted to be on the show. And then for you, I do have a question of like, why did you want to start Tea with Mike, other than you just had this interest for interviewing guests and creating this platform?
Yeah, for sure. So I've always been interested in the theater and the performing arts. Back when I was in school, I was often known as somebody that wouldn't be quiet and like to the chatterbox, and so that sort of thing. So there's that portion, and then I've worked in customer service for a few years in different roles, and Tea with Mike really like the final like block in like starting the show. I've always known I wanted to do something more, and I didn't know how that would look and whether it was going to be working on someone else's entity behind the scenes or like helping them because it can take on lots of different forms. But I was working selling tickets for an event, and these two 5-year-olds came up to the window, and I thought they were going to ask me, "Where's the bathroom or the washroom? Uh, what's the event? When can we go in?" But can you have a guess about what their question was?
No, what was the question?
So the question was because they both had digital devices. So the question was, "What's the Wi-Fi password?"
Oh, my lands.
So yeah, so these two 5 year well,
Children.
maybe a bit older, but they, they were between like 5 and 8, and you think they'd be like fighting with each other, like
Yes.
running around, making a bunch of noise, which almost to me, especially at that age, would have actually been more like rewarding to see, even if they were arguing then. But they were both like,
Yes.
so that was the final piece, I guess, to kickstarted this, and then obviously it's developing all the time, so trying different things. And I think the biggest thing I've learned is to keep trying and trying to improve, and not worry about. Obviously, I'm trying to get the best quality possible, and it'll keep improving over the time, but not get stuck up on that because like time keeps moving, it and everyone has a journey, and it's not going to be Oscar winning every like single time, and there's almost kind of a beauty in something raw that has not mistakes but shows signs of like progression, because I think that's when the, the like true personality and that sort of incredibility and authenticity and all that stems from. Yeah,
Sure. I agree wholeheartedly with, people being too scared to do something. Mike, I've met so many people who are too scared to pursue whatever it is because they're either scared that they're going to be a failure or they're scared that it won't hit like celebrity status, be 100% total success, or like if it's writing a book, it won't be a national bestseller, etc. Like you've got to just jump in. You've just got to do it. Like post the episode, write the article, call that interview guest and chat with them, etc. Like just go ahead and do it. And if you fall flat on your face, learn from it and then get back up and keep pushing forward. So like one additional question that I would love to ask you too is I know that you have had so many guests on here like from different backgrounds and different skill sets, et cetera, different interests. Um, and I know that within some of the conversations you've allowed interview guests like to give pieces of advice. And
Yes,
so what was like maybe your favorite piece of advice that a guest had shared?
sure. That's a good question. Now,
On the spot.
because thinking on your own show, damn. Let's think.
Uh,
I think there's been lots of good advice, and because every guest has obviously their own story, and they're all very diverse. Nobody is everyone's unique, and there's been bits that I could pull from all over the place. But the biggest piece of advice was, which I think reflects kind of what everybody is ultimately trying to say is,
yeah.
do the work and own your part. So it is. So I was talking about accountability, like things aren't just handed to you. You've got to put in the work, and if you put in the hard work and you stay accountable to yourself, and you don't worry 99 not 90 like 80% about other people's opinions, because as you were talking earlier, some people's opinions, especially if they're experts in a craft or a field, that's really valuable in helping you grow. So accountability, doing the work leads to, yeah, accountability, ability and doing the work leads to like ultimate growth. Yeah, so that's a piece of advice that I remember. But again, there's been lots of great advice, and I'm sure they'll continue to be.
Oh yes, that's a great answer, and I love how you appreciate what all of your interview guests have contributed to. You don't show favoritism like from one guest to the other. You're just so appreciative to be able to interview all of them because they've all brought a lot of interesting facts and conversations to the table. I just love that.
Yeah, so yeah, so thanks for being on this story time with me. It's been really great getting to know you. I'll obviously put some of your information in like the episode show description after this, and we can talk about that. But guys, thanks for watching another story time. I'm Tea with Mike. This was Leah, and you'll be able to check out this story on teawithmike.com. Thanks, Leah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike.
It's the Tea with Mike show.